I'm here at the Tour de France start, and Orbea have got some top secret prototype bikes that I've spotted I'm going to tell you all about. They're being used by the Lotto-Dstny team behind me, so let's take a look and see what makes them different from the standard ones that you or I can buy. So they say that when you're climbing that fast...
So you just stole my bike?
Yes! So this is one of the prototype bikes that I was telling you about, and I've managed to get my hands on it. This one actually belongs to former hour record holder Victor Campenaerts. So it's the Orca Aero, which is the more aerodynamic of the two bikes that are offered by Orbea to the team. The other one being the standard Orbea Orca. I say standard, it's just a very incredibly lightweight one. I see that Maximum on Hills has got one of those behind me. And all the riders are offered both of the bikes. But you can see that this one, being a prototype, is sort of, well, a secret one. It's quite different. So rather than having the standard team livery, it's just bare carbon. It looks amazing, but it's also got these yellow graphics on that say OOLab or OOLab, depending on how you read it, with that sort of infinity symbol. And with the yellow graphics, there's also a continuation with this yellow seat post to show that it's a sort of an OOLab bike as well. Now, what is OOLab? Because on the surface, the shape of this bike looks exactly the same as a standard Orbea Orca Aero, and I would know because I used to have one. And the mould is the same, I'm told. However, what is different is the carbon layup, and it's quite a lot different. So OOLab is a sort of new performance wing of Orbea that's been set up to help with pro athletes and maximize performance across a whole range of aspects of things. So they're doing things like performance modeling, and they're analyzing stages, and they're trying to optimize the whole bike setup for riders depending on what parkour they're riding on. And one of the things they've looked at is the frame layups. So a normal frame that's sold off the peg to you or I has different demands to that of a pro rider. So they naturally want to change it to optimize it as much as they can, because, well, every second counts in something like the Tour de France. Winning margins are often small. So the carbon layup here is said to be different. They told me that they've tried to reduce the weight and have managed to do that by using more exotic carbon fiber, less resin, and also stiffer carbon fibers in places. Now this increases the cost, but well, you know, to a pro rider, that's not important. But it also reduces the durability a bit, they say. It's not quite as strong, whereas a product that's sold to the public needs to sort of be a bit stronger. But a pro bike doesn't necessarily need to be as strong. It doesn't need to last an entire lifetime for years and years and years. And also, pro riders are often quite small. You know, it's typical that they're 60 kilos and well under 6 feet. So, you know, there you go. But there's some other really interesting details going on here. One of the things is the size of the tyres that are being used. They're absolute whoppers. So these are Vittoria Corsa Pros, and they're 30mm tyres. But on these Zip 353s, which are 25mm internal width, they're measuring at 32 when they're inflated. And they are chunky boys, but they look incredible. I mean, the grip in the corners must be absolutely mega, and also the comfort and presumably the improved rolling resistance as well. And a really interesting detail is because these tyres are inflating so big, the gaps here are absolutely tiny between the tyre and the frame. Now that's something that does have an impact on aerodynamics. And the guys at OOLab have been saying that something they want to sort of investigate fully is by having a range of tyre sizes within a bike, you know, is wider tyres actually helping improve the aero of a bike by closing that gap, not just in rolling resistance. And so if you have a bike that can accommodate, say, up to 32mm tyres, if you're running 28s in that bike, are you kind of aerodynamically compromising it because you're making this gap really big? They don't know the answer to that question yet, but that's the sort of thing that they're investigating within OOLab. So I mentioned performance modeling as something that OOLab's doing, and often the big question that comes up, and people laugh at us for talking about this quite a lot, do you go aero, do you go lightweight? And Orbea offering the Orca Aero and the Orca Lightweight, the riders face that choice and that decision. And OOLab helps model different stages of the race so that they can provide the riders with the best answer to that question. And it was quite interesting speaking to them, saying that when the average climbing speed is over 20k an hour, they would say always go Aero. So they say that when you're climbing that fast.
So you just stole my bike?
Yes. Good to see you. Yeah, it's all right. It's good though. I was looking at your bar tape. That's pretty cool. So is that like just for like getting in an aero position and having that bump there deliberately to sort of push against?
I'm very precise about my bar tape. You have 3 contact points: your pedals, so your shoes actually.
Yeah.
Which every rider nowadays more or less has their own shoes.
Yeah.
You have your saddle, which riders are very precise about, and your bar tape or your hoods. I'm very precise about it. When I have a bar tape wrapped up differently, let's say trombone style for Orbea, I feel like
double bar tape.
I feel like I've been not riding my bike for 1 year, so I always do it myself. I have my own special way, and that's how I like it.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. I've not seen it like that before, so that's really cool. There you go. Victor telling me how he sets his bike up. So as I was saying, whether you go aero or lightweight, at the speeds that pros often travel, aero is always the best option. But in terms of the weight difference, so Victor rides a 49, and this bike is coming in at 7.3 kilos, as you see it here. Whereas the Orca lightweight, the standard Orca, would be hitting around 6.9, 6.8 kilograms. And on a stage where you might be sitting in the bunch all day, apart from then a final summit finish, they reckon that in that situation, often the lightweight bike is the better one to go for. Also, they think there's a psychological aspect of it, because the lightweight one sometimes just feels better climbing, even though it's not actually that much difference in speed. It's this, they really are looking into the psychological element of that and the impact that that has. Sports psychology, massive. Well, there you saw Victor Campenaerts telling me about, he's really particular about the contact points of the bike. So I'm going to tell you all about the rest of the bike and how he sets it up. So starting with what he was talking about, the handlebars, he's got this Vision Metron one-piece aero bar and stem. He's a rider that loves aero, like me. And so that's why he's sort of going for this setup and the aero bike. Really interesting though how he set these up. The levers are turned in slightly. They're designed to be on this new Metron bar, but also how he's got his lizard skins bar tape with a sort of bulge on the end, and then this special grippy bit just extending onto the bars there. And that is to ride in that aero hoods position. You can see it's like, if I do it, it's like, it feels good. Like that's nice and comfortable. Like you can see his wrist is just pushing against that bulge slightly, and then it's nice and secure on that grippier stuff there. That's cool, I like that. I've not seen anyone do that. I bet people are probably gonna start copying that once they watch this video. In terms of other things on the bike, we've got the computer mount nice and integrated up front. He's got a Sella Italia saddle on there, and it's an SLR boost, similar to what I would ride, but quite unusual these days is it's one without a cutout. And the mechanics just told me that he wants to take his bike for a test ride in a minute. So I think they need to clean it because it's a little bit dirty.
Sorry about that.
It's all happening here at the tour. He's using 165 cranks, short, so he can open up his hip angle. That's nice. And chain rings are, oh wow, that's a 5842 FSA Powerbox chain rings on there. Big ones. Nice. Right. Better give it back to the mechanics. So Victor's taken his Orca Aero, but he's left his Ordu TT bike here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. But before I do, something that's really sort of important, I think, is people might wonder, well, you know, what's the point in this sort of performance prototypes, you know, if they're not available for the public to buy? Well, the whole point of it is that by working with, you know, the world's best athletes like this, and getting that feedback and doing investigations onto how to optimize bikes and make them faster, that's stuff, that's learnings that can be passed on into the products that we eventually get to buy one day, and helps Orbea continually improve what they do. Now, looking at the sort of Ordu here, this is incredible. I mean, Victor's an amazing time trialist. But it's amazing to see, he's got his training wheels set up here, but again, he's running massive tyres. So these are 28s, but they're inflating out to 30. Big boy tyres. Also got an Adamo saddle on there, which is like his own sort of custom thing that he likes, very particular with his sort of TT saddle. And then these custom bars with just, well, 3D printing on the end. They're speed bar NL ones, but ones I've not seen before, with sort of dropped hands now. Quite a sort of interesting position that, with shifters built into the end. Interestingly, 2 sets of shifters. So he's got 4 buttons on there. Riders often only have 2, but he's got presumably up and down on both sides, whereas normally, yeah, you just have the up and the down and then a synchro shift on there. So that's pretty interesting that you can do that with both sides. Presumably that's set up for when he has a front derailleur on there, which he doesn't at the moment. He's running an absolute monster. I'm going to see what size that is actually. 60. It's a 60 tooth. Massive. Some other mega details on Victor's bike. So down there's a little note which he sellotaped to the chainstay, which is a message to the mechanics that said, this is amazing, that says, do not wash this chain. Take the chain off before you wash the bike. And that's because he's waxed his chain. So this chain is waxed, and obviously not all the mechanics are used to that, and the way that they wash the bikes quickly, you know, sometimes they'll just rinse the wax off, but he's saying, no, take the chain off. Man after my own heart. Loves waxing chains, love it. But also while I'm here, I'm gonna do a Freehub sound check of Victor's TT bike training wheels. Let's see what they sound like. Zip cognition hubs on these, so they should sound pretty good. I can't, I was gonna loop the saddle over my neck. But I can't because it's got so much layback. Nice. Cognition. So as for what, you know, OOLab would like to do in the future, well, I mentioned that they're wanting to investigate how the difference in tyre gap changes depending on the size of tyres you use and how that impacts aero performance. But they also really want to look at stiffness, because stiffness is a really complicated topic, and it's one that's not very well understood. Is a stiffer bike actually faster, and at what point, you know, what level of stiffness do you require, and also how do the demands of that stiffness change? So that is something that's going to be investigated further, and it might mean that, say, actually the lightest bike isn't the best, which is what most cyclists seem to think. You know, to the point where you say if you have a bike that is, you know, 7.2 kilos or 7.3 kilos like this, if that's a big sprinter riding that bike, beefing it up could actually make it faster and better in the sprints, which is what you'd want. So answers to questions like that are what they're going to be looking at in the future. Right, I hope you've found this interesting and seen how, well, I think it's really cool that the pros get to sort of use this top secret stuff and test this stuff and help be in that process of optimizing bikes to make them better for us. And well, they also look sick with like the matte paint jobs. But let us know what you think down in the comments. I do really like the bare carbon finishes, I have to say. And hopefully see you in the next one. Love you, bye.